If Logan's Run has always felt weirdly jumpy to you, it's because entire scenes were removed and the story was never fixed. The Logan's Run we have today is not the film that was shot.
Run, runner! Run!
MGM removed somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes of footage to chase a PG rating and a broader audience. On paper, they were cutting violence, nudity, and slow moments. In practice, they were pulling out the connective tissue of the story. That's why characters suddenly change their minds with no setup. That's why certain locations appear and vanish. And that's why the second half of the film feels like it's skipping pages in a book. Welcome back to Golden Flicker. I'm Gabe, and I'll be your host today as we dive into the archives of science fiction history. Before we begin, I have to ask, if you were offered a life of absolute hedonism, luxury, and zero responsibility, but it had to end exactly on your 30th birthday, would you take that deal? And for those of you who grew up with this classic, do you remember the first time you saw the blinking life clock in the palm of a hand? In this video, we're going to look at what was cut, why the studio made those decisions, and how those missing scenes broke the continuity and narrative of Logan's Run. By the end, you'll see a very different film hiding inside the one we got. Age to screen, the age of anxiety. To understand why the movie feels broken, we first have to look at the source material. The 1967 novel by William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson was far darker and more philosophical than the neon spectacle we saw on screen. In the book, the world is run entirely by children and teenagers because the mandatory death age isn't 30, it's 21. This created a society of stunted maturity and raw, impulsive chaos. When MGM began development, they faced a massive problem. They wanted big stars like Michael York, who was already in his 30s during filming. To accommodate the casting and appeal to a broader adult demographic, the studio raised the age limit to 30. This fundamentally shifted the theme from youth rebellion to a meditation on midlife anxiety and the fear of expiration. The novel also featured an ending that Hollywood found too expensive or complex for the era. In the book, Sanctuary is a real place, a colony orbiting Mars. In the film, Sanctuary is reduced to a myth, turning the story into a journey toward the ruins of Washington, D.C. Even the characters were flipped. In the book, Francis is a secret ally who actually leads the rebellion. But the movie turns him into a relentless, zealous antagonist who dies in a final chase. This change alone stripped the story of its deepest irony, that the hunter was being guided by the leader of the runners all along. The ghost of George Powell and the Soylent Green influence. The road to the screen was a decade-long journey through development hell. Back in 1969, the legendary George Powell, the man behind The War of the Worlds, was the one trying to bring Logan to life. He envisioned a version full of political symbolism, but his vision clashed with the studio's desire for a commercial thriller. Powell eventually left the project to pursue other work, leaving a vacuum in the production's creative direction. Eventually, Saul David took over, and he brought in Stanley R. Greenberg, the writer behind the eco-horror classic Soylent Green. It was actually Greenberg who invented the Carousel ritual. In the novel, people simply went to sleep shops to be quietly euthanized. Greenberg realized that for a movie, you needed a visual spectacle to justify the budget. He created the idea of citizens levitating and exploding in a shower of lights, believing they were being renewed. This became the film's signature set piece, but as the budget ballooned from $3 million to $9 million, the studio started getting nervous. They needed a massive hit to recover their investment, and they believed the only way to get one was to make the movie safer and shorter for a PG audience, leading to the aggressive cuts that haunt the film today. The brutalist beauty of Dallas. To keep those rising costs under control, the production left the expensive sound stages of California and headed to Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas. They chose these locations because the brutalist architecture of the 1970s looked like the 23rd century already built for free. The famous Dallas Apparel Mart served as the Great Hall of the domed city. It was a logistical nightmare for the crew. The room was so massive, longer than 2 football fields, that the cinematographer, Ernest Laszlo, had to haul in special transformers just to provide 9,000 amps of power to light the space. Even with that massive output, Laszlo had to overexpose the film just to capture the actors' faces against the vast, dark concrete. Then there were the Fort Worth Water Gardens, which doubled as the city's hydro power plant. These cascading pools were nearly 9 feet deep at the time, and stunt performers had to dive into them repeatedly in the sweltering Texas heat. The heat was so intense that travel between the different Dallas locations strained the schedule. Yet they pushed through to create a world that felt both grand and claustrophobic. But while the locations were beautiful, the footage shot there began to disappear once the studio executives started worrying about the film's length. We are halfway through our journey into the domed city. If you're enjoying these deep dives into the hidden history of cinema, please illuminate our day by clicking that like button and subscribing to Golden Flicker. We're a growing channel, and every sub helps us keep these stories alive. Also, which classic film has a production story you've always wondered about? Let us know in the comments below. And now, Golden Flicker moment. The censored scenes. Now we reach the heart of the mystery. The original sneak preview of Logan's Run ran approximately 130 minutes. The version we see today is only 119 minutes. What was in those missing 11 minutes? The most famous lost sequence is the original opening. Instead of the text crawl we have now, the movie originally opened with Francis hunting a runner through a crowded plaza. The runner leaps into a fountain and is brutally killed by Francis, while the citizens around them cheer and applaud. It was a dark, depressing way to start the film, and MGM cut it entirely because they feared it would make the society too unlikable for a general audience. Have you ever noticed that Jessica is suddenly soaking wet for no reason? That's because a fight sequence with a sanctuary woman who betrays them was removed, which included a fall into an icy pool. The cuts that significantly altered the film's continuity occurred in the ice cave. In the original cut, Logan and Jessica remove their clothes, and the robot Box creates an ice sculpture of the pair. During this process, there was a kissing sequence between the two characters. Once the sculpture was finished, they would put their clothes back on. Because the entire sculpture and kissing sequence were removed for the theatrical release, the transition shows them removing their clothes and then, in the next shot, appearing fully dressed again. Beyond the ice cave, several other sequences were removed during the final edit. These include a conspiracy scene, an extended confrontation between Logan and the Cubs, a sequence in the New You shop, and a funeral scene for Francis. Do you agree that this is the gold flicker moment? The point where these missing fragments change how we perceive the journey of Logan and Jessica? Dangers of Carousel and technical sorcery. Despite these continuity scars, Logan's Run remains a visual landmark that pushed 1970s technology to its limit. The production design by Dale Hennessy used pioneering 3D holograms and innovative rainbow tape on models to create a world that felt truly futuristic. Actor Michael York even pioneered the use of on-screen holograms through multiplex labs, a first for major cinema. But the most iconic set, the Carousel, was a nightmare of engineering and danger. During the early days of shooting, the original Carousel rigs failed dangerously. Stunt performers were left tangled and dangling 40 feet in the air when the central winches seized up. To fix this and ensure the safety of the actors, the production had to rebuild the entire rig with individual winches and film many of the sequences upside down to achieve the floating effect. The film's success was so massive that it spawned a cultural wave, including a Marvel comic illustrated by George Perez and a short-lived TV series in 1977. The TV show followed Logan and Jessica as fugitives across a post-apocalyptic America, but without the cinematic budget, it had to rely on reused movie footage to save money. It was cancelled after just one season, leaving fans of the run hungry for more. Life after 30. Logan's Run is more than just a sci-fi adventure. It's a time capsule of an era where movies were trying to be both high art philosophy and popcorn entertainment. Even with its broken logic, missing scenes, the core message still resonates. The fear of growing old and the desire for freedom at any cost. Today, the lost footage remains a holy grail for fans. While some deleted scenes appeared as extras on the 1998 DVD, the full 130-minute preview cut is still missing, surviving only in script notes and rare bootleg audio from the original 1976 screenings. We are left with a film that is a beautiful, flawed puzzle, a testament to 1970s ambition and the heavy hand of studio interference. If you discovered something new today, illuminate our day by clicking like and subscribe to Golden Flicker so you never miss a story from the annals of cinema history. Which film should we explore next? A different dystopian future, or perhaps a dive into the secret history of a horror classic? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, keep the flicker alive.